Thank you. I now call the meeting, our working session to order August 1st, 2019 at 5:30. First order of business is innovation and grow, and that would be Mr. Arnold with our Future Ready Alliance.
Okay, so.
Oh, you don't have a place to stand, Mr.
It's
Arnold.
actually, so this is we'll be referencing the magazine.
I found something.
It's a draft, it just needs to be back up.
Yes, we know that.
Real
Thank
talk.
you. Yes, that would be great, and I'd love any feedback you could provide. That would be very nice.
He told me to 2 days ago, so I'm just.
Hey, that's what we want. So, Future Ready Alliance team, this past year, we've been having many conversations with community and within our school community around the purpose of school. And as we have those conversations, it makes it more evident that business leaders, community leaders need to be at the table as we really reimagine what experiences could look like for our students in our community. So our goal was that by August of 2019, we would form a Future Ready Alliance team that is composed of local, regional, state, even national leaders within the workforce field. So we actually had a first initial meeting with some key leaders on Tuesday, really driving into some questions around what does it really look like to create learning partnerships that can really transform our county and our region. And within our magazine, we've actually identified, we have a page dedicated to the Future Ready Alliance team that kind of explains the purpose of this group and who some of the initial invitees were as a part of this work. And I think Ms. Breeding has volunteered to be a part of this group, and that's great because with your background and what you do every day, I think you'll be great to be a part of this discussion. But when we met on Tuesday, we did a lot of listening, and we actually had groups and kind of facilitated conversation. And some things that really came out of the discussion really dealt around even a piece of accountability when we think about what should really be expected of graduates when they leave Nelson County schools, and how can these leaders in our community really help us reimagine what we expect of our students when they leave us. So it was some very good conversation around that. On September 18th, we will be going to the Ignite School in Boone County, Kentucky. And this school is collaborative. It's really a regional approach with several districts in northern Kentucky, with Boone and Kenton really driving the boat on a lot of what's happened. So Toyota Manufacturing pulled out of northern Kentucky, and as they were doing that, they donated this facility to the local school districts to really think about what an academy could look like that's aligned to labor market needs and demand. So we're going to be taking a group, and we've invited Marion, Nelson to obviously be there, Bardstown and LaRue County schools to be a part of this visit. And I hope some of you can participate in the visit so we can kind of learn from that group. They'll actually be hosting their first group of students, I think, this year. Also during the meeting, we kind of looked over different pieces of our magazine where we really focused on the regional collaboration that is taking place at our Area Technology Center. And as you all know, we do have an opening for principals, so we feel like we can get some leadership in that building that can really help us create a vision for this school, so we're excited about the things ahead there. We also had we've done some pages focusing on the teacher externship. So, you know, we've visited with you all on that. You've visited with some of our teachers. So we're going to start seeing some things come into action with our students this year as a result of some of the summer experiences that took place with the externship. Another discussion we had that kind of came out was highlighting our students who are receiving dual credit while in high school, but also what does it look like to have that work-based experience along with that college experience. So I think I introduced at the last board meeting Brett Phelps, who is our workforce student leader. And I think Brett, as a sophomore, already had like 30-some college credits. And he's going to continue that path this year, but also be doing a work-based experience with us here at the board office around workforce development. And you all saw one of his products with the video that he created. So we kind of used this to facilitate some of our conversation, recognizing that there are ways that we can continue to make this better, and also recognizing that our Future Ready Alliance team is really going to help drive where we want to go, not necessarily with just the workforce development efforts, but overall as a district, and really thinking through with our business and community leaders about what are some measures of success for our students in our district. So do you all have questions about the meeting? We'll meet again in October, so they're quarterly meetings. And each time in between meeting, we are going to be taking some action steps. So for example, the Ignite visit would be one of those where we can actually go see some things that are going on in the state and around the area.
Who would get, well, he's not mine. Who would get this?
So I think the plan is we'll distribute them with employer partners, parents, community members, just to kind of share examples of success and celebrate some of the work.
Okay. That's good. I like it.
So this is really our first magazine of the year. We'll also be doing different versions of these as we think about student leadership and some of the work going on around the district with other priorities. So I could definitely see a K-2 literacy and early literacy magazine coming out as we think about our partnership with Imagination Library and thinking about helping parents understand what family engagement looks like in early literacy. Brooke and Laura worked on this collaboratively for probably 6 to 8 weeks, talking through it. And this is draft one, and we'll continue to evolve. But I think it's a good example of most of this work came from the work that Laura and you as a board team did over the past year.
So almost like theme topic magazines that occur at different times on different big initiatives and goals that we've got.
And I think too, while this is exciting to an elementary parent, some of the other pieces around student literacy might be more relevant.
Sure.
Some of the parents are going to be highly engaged and students in some themes more than others. So we also, there's a form of accountability in this. So when we say this is what we're investing in Nelson County and student leadership looks like this and here's what we offer at our schools.
And we got to do it.
We have 2 student leadership directors who are leading this conversation, and it creates some accountability. We have major investment in K-2 literacy. That storyline is an investment. So big shout out to Laura and the team for building this conversation over the past few months.
And I think it helps too, as we sit down with employers and really think about creating new partnerships to actually show evidence of things that have happened, but also showing faces and helping tell, this is a student that did this and this is where they are now. Just like this young man on this page, this actually was one of our externship days, and this young man graduated from Nelson County a few years ago, actually still wearing an ATC t-shirt, but is working for Busick Construction. So it's just exciting to actually go out and see these students working and then being able to tell that as a part of our story.
Well, and for that business partner, or that business that wants to be a partner that goes, but what can I do to help? Let's talk about and show some of the things that we've done and that you can tie into.
Notice the transportation logistics, it looks like this. That's the last 2 months. This is a great example of the story that we can share. That clear example of creating something from nothing when our community steps up.
How much does this cost per magazine?
Laura, do you know?
I don't know, and I'm not going to look at Amy because I'm sure she could tell us.
I seen the purchase order, but I do not know. I'd sort of like to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure I
whatever
can.
Because if we're gonna give them out, and it comes through the budget, then.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear.
'Cause it's nice
not a-
paper. I mean, it's not-
It's going to be a major budget item, just to be clear. It would be coming out of the workforce budget. as part of
That's
it.
what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a nice paper and it's all nice.
It's just like anything else, the more you make, the cheaper they are. So, when you don't make very many, they're more expensive.
Yeah. Good job. That's
Thank you.
really good. Thank you.
September 18th. Yeah, we'll make sure you all get
seen it?
Yeah.
the invite. Have you been there?
I have not been to Ignite, but I've talked with some students who have been over with the Carroll County.
The I-League.
The
This is
I-League,
totally
yes.
different.
Yeah, the Ignite, one of my coworkers, Charlotte Chowning, that's her part of the state, and so I've heard from her some of that.
It's a good, obviously the building initially from Toyota was probably a $100 million building, so, but it had been kind of run down at that point. It took over, I think they invested $36 million in it. So Boone County, obviously, a pretty serious amount of money going on. But as we look to think about the ATC and renovations in Nelson County High School, it definitely gives us some ideas to think about, because they just really did it the right way.
And they also received some money from the state through the Work Ready Skills Initiative when there was the $100 million bond. But I think that's a good example. Like, they were ready, they had a plan, and they could apply, and they were able to get that money. So
Jump
they-
on it at the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Goff with our Chromebook update.
Yeah, so I'm not going to take too much of your time, but we did want to update you guys on where we are with our Chromebook rollout. That's obviously an investment that you guys have made over the past few years. Yeah, it's a little,
This way. You should present. This one you can hit present on, because it's not.
Oh, I
You
see.
go up to the
Oh, see,
first.
I see. Okay. I
yeah,
just-
there you go.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
You need to
So-
tell him to back off, you got this under
No,
control.
no, I just, I didn't hear. It's so good.
Well, I just saw that the picture was off.
Yeah, no worries. So, obviously, this is an investment that the board has made over the past 2 years, that we're in the second phase of our one-to-one rollout in 3rd, 6th, and 9th grade. And really, we just wanted to take a little bit of time to update you on where we are in that process and some things that have come to life in that. We know that this is not about the device. As we've said repeatedly, this is not about the Chromebook. This is really about taking classrooms and opening them up to the larger world. And we know that technology allows that to happen. This is actually a picture from last April, I believe, at Thomas Nelson High School when we had the Chromebook Connection Night. I think maybe some of y'all were there at that, and some students got to showcase what they had done with Google. We fully intend for that to get larger this year as we think about how students showcase their gifts and understanding that conversation in the context of technology and what that looks like. And Damon and the state have really set a nice example for that with STLP and some other things that go on. So if you go to the next slide, one of the things that we learned last year was we pretty much had Chromebook rollout on school technology coordinators, and they were primarily responsible for it. And we know that if we're serious about shared leadership, the reason that we believe in that as a priority is because together we're better. We know that when we do things and we lighten the load, that it's better for everybody. So this year, we really tried to take that approach with one-to-one rollout, and we've had some really good things that have happened. So our technology department was shifted, reorganized to where we had tech hub leaders. They were not all here at central office, and that's really allowed them to take some local ownership over those schools. Our principals have been given really good feedback about that conversation with them and what's been happening, and so they delivered the devices and are really responsible for helping to lead student help desk this year, think about what it means for students to be working on our Chromebooks and troubleshooting those things, and they're in a really good spot with that. We've obviously put in the backpack leader, and those conversations have started with them about what does it look like now that kids have devices. And we have a lot of schools that are completely one-to-one, a lot of other schools obviously that have a lot of devices. And so backpack leaders we've been really excited about the people we've hired for those positions to think really creatively around what it looks like to take a device and use that to amp up the way that we teach students. We do still have student technology coordinators. It's really provided an opportunity for teachers and leaders in those buildings to do some powerful work. Have been to 4 or 5 open houses at this point. Was at OKH. Nikki LaFollette is a teacher, science teacher over there. She's the STC. Tremendous rollout over there. Very easy. Parents were very engaged in those conversations. I was at Foster Heights. I've been at Bloomfield Middle School. And it's been very smooth in the way that they have really gone about that. And they're going to be helping track those devices and do some of that. Our district library media specialist, we hired 2 people to do that role, and they have been exceptional. They kind of are looking at, it's very similar to where our technology hub leaders are. They have a group of schools, and they've been instrumental in making sure we have a tracking system. We know that if we invest money in something, we have to track it. And then they're also really thinking about what does it mean for us to say that students understand digital citizenship. They know what it means to what that looks like on a computer. They've had some conversations with principals about some different things. And then another group that has really been instrumental this year and where we got to see the big picture come together is last year we facilitated most of this through Google. And we obviously love Google and we do a lot of things through Google. But we figured out back when we started talking about online registration that by including the parent registration sign up, the sign off on Chromebooks, the allowing students to take those home, if we embedded that as part of online registration, it would really simplify the process for everybody. So we rebranded the registrars to this new role of family caretakers in every building, and they have taken the lead on making sure that when parents are completing the online registration, that is part of that process, the Chromebook sign off, and they're able to run reports like that through Infinite Campus to know who's completed that, which students are allowed to take devices home, and they're able to communicate with the school technology coordinators to ensure that we have devices in the appropriate hands. So they've been a really good support for us this year, or this summer, in rolling out Chromebooks. And I think our schools, just to give you some context to this, last year pretty much all of our schools waited until school got in session to give Chromebooks to students. Because of the online registration and using that, and because of multiple people supporting that, almost every school is giving out the one-to-one Chromebooks at open houses and other things, and we have really good systems to do that because we're able to track it, we know who's supposed to get them, and it's been a really, really good process in place, so we're excited about that. The last slide just kind of shows you, so you have some context, what we asked schools to do, and they were able to get a lot of these things done. We wanted to make sure we had them delivered. I think they were delivered early. We had them input to the system early. Schools now are doing parent participations and making sure parents understand that. We did ask schools this year to begin this conversation because we have backpack leaders, and part of their work is really thinking about how we use these devices when it comes to instruction, to have those conversations with teachers about expectations, what we want with Chromebooks, what the purpose of these Chromebooks are, and so they've been doing that. And then like I said, we really wanted Chromebooks distributed before August 16th. Most of them will be distributed before school gets started, which will really allow teachers to hit the ground running. They'll be able to start from day one utilizing that technology and not having to be delayed a couple weeks. So all of that to say, we're really excited about the rollout. It's been a really good process this summer. I feel really good about the way that model has really been shared with different leaders in our district. So just want to keep you all in the loop. Do you have any questions about it?
This is probably a lot of smart people working together. Chase helping create systems with Jessica Sparrow and
Laura Mann.
So remember, as a part of the reorganization, we still have 2 district LMSs, traditionally known as media specialists or librarians. And they are really instrumental in this process as well. And they'll also be instrumental as we think about the K2 literacy and that conversation around classroom libraries and how we're using our spaces to support kids in their reading. So, but that's a construct that really Chase has built with that team of people. And I'm very grateful for that.
How many backpack leaders are there?
So there's one in all of our 9 traditional schools. So 9 of them.
And I want to know if Jessica Sparrow and
Laura Mann,
she knew.
she was at Bloomfield Middle School.
Okay. So they are the ones that's gonna travel around.
Yes.
Now, if a student needs to be in the library doing something, who helps on that end?
Every school's doing it a little differently.
Yeah, so every school is a little bit different. Our elementary schools, if you remember when we did the allocations, our elementary schools have elementary schools and K-8 schools were allocated a instructional aid position for the purpose of library and ensuring if students or people need to come check out books, do that process. So that exists in all of our elementary and K-8 schools. Our middle and high schools are a little bit different. I can speak to Mr. Adams at Bloomfield Middle was really thinking about how he can leverage that space for some pretty creative projects and utilize the library that's in Bloomfield with his kids. Ms. Case is looking at doing something kind of similar. So they're all in kind of different spots depending on where they are.
But
I
when
think
somebody
too-
comes to the library though, they will have help, let's say to check out a resource or,
So I think it's a paradigm shift though. There's a lot of the library will be in the classrooms. And that's the transition we're making. So
So-
that it's not gonna be, there'll be some, what you would call the circulation traditionally, known as a circulation. There'll be some of that, but we'll be really moving away from that to more classroom space.
So we know that, so just to give you some
I don't,
context.
whoa, please.
Okay, so just to give you some context, we know if you look at research around reading, that students are much more likely to pick up a book and read it when it's in front of them versus having to go to a space to do that. There's different things that I can cite for you on that, but we know that's true. We also know that with Chromebooks and with that technology, that there is a vast amount of reading resources available at their fingertips. So what we want to do is ensure that they have access to that, which the board has done through the Chromebook conversation. But we want to invest heavily in classroom libraries so that in our buildings that our teachers have a classroom library space that students are able to, throughout the course of the day, they're going to have books in front of them at all times. So our library media specialists have started the conversation with all of our principals about what does that look like in our buildings? Do we want to focus that on a certain group of teachers? Do we want all teachers to kind of have access to some of those things initially? Because we fully expect that conversation will expand, because we know that if you talk to most teachers, they have classroom library spaces anyway in the early grades in elementary, and we want to expand that to lots of other teachers. So it's not that they won't go to the library, that space will still exist, they will still have that, but we want to put books closer to kids in the classroom.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
Where I'm going at is when that student leaves high school and goes to college and they're going to the library, and don't look at me like that, like, oh.
They won't go to the library, no.
They're not.
No.
People-
My daughter-
goes to the library, I'm
She
sorry,
uses
but
it-
she
uses
does.
the-
She uses this too, but she also goes to the library.
Does the
So-
stack still exist, do you think? You guys remember the stacks?
Yes, I do. Yep, she goes to the library, Wes, she really does, but she's an older student too. She uses both, and she's back in school, and she goes to the library. I just don't want kids to miss out on things such as a library.
Yeah, and I think once again, this construct of shared leadership, engaging more people in that conversation. Mr. Adams, he's new to our school district, new principal at Bloomfield Middle School, and he saw things with really new sets of eyes and realized, like, I have a community library that's within walking distance of my school. Why not leverage the resources that exist? So it's not only kids going to the library, but it's an experience that they get to have of what it means to go in a shared community space and what that
That's what I'm
entails.
saying.
Yeah, so absolutely,
Yeah, that's what I'm
and that's why too, we have 2 district LMSs, and they're really thinking creatively around those spaces. We know that clearing them and ensuring that we have the right things in there will be another.
Yeah, I just don't want the doors shut,
Yeah,
so
no,
we'll never
absolutely.
use the library. I mean, that's
No.
why we need a library in the school.
Honestly, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like knocking this wall down in here. We're knocking a wall down because the library is going to become a much more creative space that teachers will utilize.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I don't want you to close the door and say, we don't need libraries anymore.
No, I
Because we do.
think we've all said in
Because
the
that's the impression
conversation.
you give me when you say that, is that the books are, you want the books right here, but kids need to know.
Yeah, but I think a library just looks very different today then. it
But it's
does
still
say
a
to
library
grade,
guide.
But then it did
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah, it is different,
It's very different.
but it's still a reference room.
There's two things that I take from what I've heard you talk about, both on the library and on the Chromebook, part of what you've shared. The Chromebook part of what I heard you share is that the device is moot. Doesn't matter what the device is, it's changing that learning experience that our students have. It just so happens to be, in our situation, we've settled on the Chromebook device.
Right.
Which a lot of school districts have had challenges with, because they've thought, once I've decided which device I'm going to order 500 of, whatever the number is, then I'm done. I'm there. I've accomplished what I needed to do. And yet it doesn't change the learning experience that the students have.
Right.
So that's one thing that I heard from you there. The other piece, and it is related to this library, so 25 years ago, in the early days of the KEDS program, the Kentucky Education Technology System program, it was all about connections. Okay, let's get computers in classrooms, let's connect classrooms, let's connect buildings to the internet, et cetera, et cetera. So what ended up happening a lot of times, and there is still a lot of this, but it's starting to disappear, were computer labs.
Right.
And so it was a place that you went because that's where it was. And I can remember at Winburn Middle School, whenever I taught there, that it was, okay, let's all get our stuff. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said it's
I-
where you went to, because everybody didn't have computers.
Yeah, so it was, okay, now let's get all of our stuff together, let's walk across the building, 10 minutes. Let's get settled and get our work started, another 5 minutes. We got 30 minutes to do what we're wanting to do. Okay, now we got to get everything collected, and now we got to traipse back across the school building. And that concept of having these big mega labs of computers that we go to, we've now started to realize that that's not what students want. Students want access. They want that ability to be able to have it at their fingertips, and because we've now got devices like this that are sub $200, we can provide that to them. So what I'm hearing there in relation with the library is we're wanting it to not just be something that, and that's not, let me back up and say, that's not to say that there are not still places for labs.
Right.
We still there are still needs in certain scenarios for certain learning opportunities. That's what I'm hearing you say with the library as well, is that there are still certain learning opportunities, that there is that need. It may look a little different, but that at the same time, we need to stop thinking about this concept of let's all get up, walk down the hall to go to this room to get books or to do research when I've got it right here. I can do my research sitting right here.
I think to your point, you talk about computer labs. Now you see in a lot of our schools that had computer labs, they're converting to STEM labs, and students are messing with robots, and they're creating circuits, and they're doing all these things. So it's still it's a great space because it was a big space and it was very well connected and those things when it was built. And now it's being used from what was just traditional, maybe computer type things, to now
Word
kids
processing.
are building lots of different stuff. I think the library is very similar in that it's the best learning space in most buildings. It's a big space. It's got a lot of connectivity. It's a hub in most buildings, centrally located, and I think it's going to provide really creative learning experiences for kids. It just might look a little bit different than the reason it was traditionally built.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a good point.
All good stuff.
Anything else? Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Owens, come on up. Dedicated to our community, unaudited AFR, and a Section 125 plan administration.
Yes, ma'am. So this is a timeline you've seen many times over the past year, so we're just going to go back to it to show you where we are. At the end of June, close of June 30th, all the way through the end of July, really what we're working on is preparing the unaudited AFR for submission to KDE. At the end of July, when that is submitted to KDE, it really initiates two processes. For the prior fiscal year, what's left is the actual audit, and ours is currently scheduled for September 9th through September 13th for the actual field portion. They're already working with our school business leaders on the school portion of the audit. The other thing that initiates is the general fund tax levy process for the new year. And we expect to receive those rates probably next Monday or next Tuesday. Carla, can you go to the next slide? And so I just wanted to give you a quick timeline of what that's going to end up looking like. We expect the rates next week. That will start our 45-day cycle. And if it's timed correctly and we get them on Monday, September 17th board meeting is day 44. So that will make it where we can actually do it at the board meeting and not have to have a special call board meeting. So the plan will be to advertise the week of September 1st and September 8th, and then do the public hearing and the general fund tax levy vote at the actual September 17th board meeting. Okay. So I did want to give you a few overviews of the unaudited AFR. Our general fund expenses decreased by more than $400,000 compared to fiscal year 2018. If you remember correctly, our expenses had increased last year by $1.4 million, but it was due to several changes that were made, and so we're really bringing ourselves in line with the budget right now. Our general fund revenues increased by approximately $600,000 compared to fiscal year 2018, and that was it has to do with taxes, but it wasn't really because of the way that the tax assessment happened. So the SEEK revenue decreased by approximately $850,000, which you were told last year we expected. We actually expected about $1 million, and it ended up being $850,000 because of the increase in enrollment. And then tax revenues increased by approximately $1.6 million. We were expecting the $1 million. But our distilled spirits tax ended up being higher than we did expect. I actually talked to Tim about this, and he said that typically they use an estimate on the distilled spirits portion. That's one thing that they actually estimate. They estimate it from the previous year, and normally that works, but every once in a while, assessments are larger than that estimate, which happened this year, and so that was not expected, but it did increase our tax revenues this year by that much. And so then the actual realized general fund carry forward is just under $3 million. We were at 2.16 last year, and if you remember correctly, that was actually a drop from our previous year carry forward, so we were able to fill that back in, which is what we were hoping to do. And then there's a little bit on top of that, but there's three factors that really contributed to the increase. The student enrollment increase, so our SEEK decrease that we were expecting was not as large as we expected. The increase in the distilled spirits revenue, and then we've just really been focused this year on optimizing all of our resources and ensuring that the funding that we receive is aligned to district priorities. And we've had some success this year, and we're going to continue that conversation throughout the coming year as well. Additionally, there was a one-time transfer of funds from Fund 2 to Fund 1 in the amount of $850,000. That's just to track it. Really, that money's been spent every year on special education. It was just housed over in Fund 2 and not moved to Fund 1, so now it's just been moved. So it's one time, it's not recurring, it won't happen again, and it doesn't change our net position and our fund balance. You just move from one category to the other.
It was always there, we just call it something different now.
Exactly. So if you can go one more slide, Carla. This is a summary of the Fund 1 balance sheet at the end of the year. What I want to bring your focus to is the carry forward amount. This does include everything we just said. We were just under $3 million without that transfer. That transfer brings us up to that amount. You'll notice some differences in the cash, but that's just because we had a lot more invested last year. But our cash balance was really low at the end of the year. I don't like to be quite that low because I feel like it. So when the investments rolled out, we just didn't invest quite as much this time. So overall, I feel like we had a good year, and we're really in a good place as we move into these conversations, as we continued our investment in K-2 literacy, in the one-to-one Chromebooks. All of those things have really played into this, and this has allowed us to work into that budget that you guys have approved. Now that the unaudited AFR is complete, we'll be working on finalizing the working budget, which will be approved in September on the same night that you approve the general fund tax levy. So.
We did a teacher raise last year.
Excuse me?
This year.
For this year, 1%.
Right, we also, so the total salary increase is based on adjustment for teachers was 350,000 plus about 67,000 for student leadership, which includes all forms of student leadership. So we're about $425,000.
I don't remember the exact
It's
number.
about $425,000 increase. That was all part of the,
But yeah, I think from someone, if I remember right, wasn't it years 26 and above, we took care of that?
25 and above, and
25
then we also
above.
did a 1% overall.
that was,
So it's the two.
it was a,
That's good.
Yeah.
yep.
And then we also, don't forget, there will be some
That's-
additional expenses with CERS rates increasing as well.
That's for this coming year's
This coming year,
budget.
yeah, great, okay, I got you.
Yep, so you'll see that next year. So,
Remind me again, who is it that's doing our audit?
it is
What entity?
Jason Strange, the,
Styles Carter.
yes, thank you.
And this is year what of how
I believe
many?
it's 3 or 4 for him. I actually checked back that we aren't at 5 years yet, and being that I'm a little bit newer to the district and he's been with the district, I felt like it was probably in our best
Sure.
interest to have the same person come in who has some experience with us.
I think the timeline conversation is something that we'll know next week.
We'll be able to give you some actual numbers. So, all right, any questions on that part?
It doesn't.
Okay, good.
It's a weird quirk.
All right, so section 125 plan, I don't have a presentation, I just wanted to talk through this. In April, you approved us to submit an RFP for proposal for our section 125 plan administrator. In May, you appointed Ms. Dye to help us in that process, and she's been a wonderful asset in it. She's has so much knowledge that it's been really great to have her on board. So we sent out, on May 1st, we sent out an RFP to 4 different agencies. We chose agencies that were common in Kentucky school districts, ones that other schools work with in this area and beyond. And then those packets were due back to us by June 10th. At that point, we distributed them to Ms. Dye, myself, our payroll, and our benefits, and we all reviewed. And then we came back together for discussion and selected 2 of those to come back in and do a formal interview presentation. Some of our focuses have been on not only can we provide the best that we can for our employees, but also on an open enrollment that's digital and easy for people. Not that it excludes the paper option, but it provides opportunities for our employees to see what they have online in a simpler process than what we currently have. The other thing we've really been focused on is we are not experts in insurance. And so oftentimes we get a lot of questions that really we shouldn't be answering for employees based on their actual insurance. And so we wanted to make sure that we partnered with a company that really took ownership of that and understood our employees and was willing to put forth a full investment in our employees and their insurance needs. So I would love to say that I have a recommendation, but it's down to 2, and they're so close that I do not have the actual one that I'm going to recommend tonight.
So it changes, we're not prepared to make it.
We're not, this morning I thought, okay, I'm going to make this recommendation. I talked to Wes, I said, man, it's so close. So I will be.
You don't have to make a recommendation, it was like we're ready to make a recommendation.
Can you tell who? The final 2? The final 2 are Ash Group and Houchins Benefits Group. And Ms. Dye, would you like to add anything that during the process?
I will say that, during the process, we being the royal we of a school district, need to run a school district and not an insurance company. And therefore, it's very important what level of service they get and that they understand the community that we still have a lot of people here who may not be ready for online enrollment, but we have a lot of other people who are only going to enroll online. And anything that is changing to the benefit of not just the district, but the employees. Whichever one Amy picks, we are going to be absolutely fine with. They're both high quality, their rates are, comparable. It's not as much about the rates. I mean, everybody's pretty close on that, but it's the level of service,
Yeah.
and both of these are level of service.
Flip a quarter on the rates, let's look at the service piece.
But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with Amy too. When I saw Ash, I was like, absolutely, I can see that. If you go with the houses, I can see reasons going with them too. I think it's a win-win either way.
So we discussed, Amy's gonna potentially talk a little further with them.
One difference is the state, of course, has previously only offered health insurance for us, and last year they began offering dental and vision insurance. So across the state, there was a lot of confusion because your Section 125 plan was offering dental and vision, and then the state was offering dental and vision, and you had a lot of people that dual enrolled accidentally, and we had a lot of cleanup to do. So one part of the discussion was that if the state's going to offer dental and vision, there's no point in us also doing it here and confusing employees. So therefore, do what?
I know both.
You also enrolled in other things too.
One of the two things, one was primary, one was secondary, and if you don't know, that's not the way it works on these coverages. There is no such thing
Yeah,
as primary and secondary.
that was actually one of the first questions she asked. Well, if we have both, and it doesn't, so.
If we could offer employees a secondary plan, it would be totally different. We're not, we're just offering confusion.
So, Ms. Dye, this means come the regular meeting later in August, I'm definitely going to be looking this way and go, okay, so what are we supposed to do here, Ms. Dye?
Yeah, I'll let you know, yeah.
Okay, you let me know.
Yeah, it's not hard.
And the only other larger change other than selecting would be, we've had a $10,000 life insurance policy that the board has paid for decades. That's the state, I think it started before the state was offering it. The state actually does a $20,000 policy. You can't port it, meaning that you can't convert it when you leave employment. You can't, so really it's been used 2 or 3 times in a decade because it only applies if somebody unfortunately while they're employed. And it's not even enough to cover funeral expenses
Now,
at
do you
this
have
point,
like
so.
add-ons like Aflac and as part of your?
Not Aflac, but we do have accident policies and things like that.
But it's part of the 125 plan,
It
so all
is.
that information is uploaded on.
It is. And these new online systems actually make it where as an employee, when you go on, if it's based on age, it actually shows what your rate is going to be and what your amount's going to come out of your check based on your salary. And that will all be in the system, so as you're making your decision, you'll be able to select based on you, not based on a sheet trying to figure out where you're going to fit in it. So it's there, but it will also be provided where somebody can come in and meet with the employees who are not able to do it online. So we're really excited.
Since this might be the first year of doing that, I assume it would not show what I had last year, so I could sit there and compare side by side.
It would not.
But maybe going forward, it could have that.
Yes, I'm sure if it was the same, when
If
you're
it was
working
the
with the
same
same
one,
company.
yeah.
And of course, this is not something you would review every year. You should review it every 3 to 5 years, but it's not something that you would review every year because you normally get a guaranteed rate for about 3 years, so there wouldn't even be a reason to even look at it until after that anyway.
Honestly, for someone that knows about that much about insurance, or then I better have it, that having that ability
Yes,
year to year to look to see what did I have last year so I can compare to my choices this year and go, okay, I see I had this, so I need to make sure I do this.
And they actually have also been able to upload all their summary plan benefits, links to anything that you need to link to, embed videos in to provide instructions for employees that are struggling and don't really know what they're looking at. And so I just think it's going to provide a lot of resources to our employees in the coming year. So you will have a recommendation before the board meeting. Well, all right.
You did good.
Put a lot going on.
Yes, ma'am, there certainly is. And fundraiser requests? No.
So fundraisers, I do want to update you on something. You're going to see a Donors Choose one on here, and so I wanted to explain why that's going to happen. The Red Book has recently gone through a revision. It's finalizing it in KDE right now. Previously, schools have had an opportunity. Some schools have chosen not to participate. Most schools now have some guidelines to allow teachers to participate in things like this. Red Book has actually now provided guidance in the Red Book on how to do this. And it's going to be an approval process very much similar to the fundraiser approval process, where if it's school activity related, the principal can approve, but if it's a school-wide initiative, then it'll come to the board. So you'll see some of these donors choose in the future. I am working with Julie James, who is going to be reviewing a lot of our student activity fund processes, trying to simplify this process, so instead of getting a bunch of links down here, you're actually going to get a sheet with anything that you have to approve in the consent agenda, the way that you've seen it in the past, but maybe organized a little bit differently. These particular ones, most of them occur during open house night, and that's why you're seeing them now for approval before the board meeting, because they're asking to have these fundraisers on open house night on the 5th. So we are asking for your approval tonight on these ones.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let them fundraise. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to hear from Ms. McKay on the policy and procedure update.
So we had these 5 policies, a first reading at the July board meeting. We'll just need a motion to approve the second reading for these policies, and we review these revisions at the July board meeting. So if you don't have any questions, we just need a motion to approve.
I need a motion to approve these policies as presented.
I will make a motion to approve the policies as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Dye. I need a second. Mr. Dickerson, thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
So, I didn't do a very good job of reminding you guys of this again. We do have the bear meet over at Nelson County High School. With that said, we're on chapter 6 of deep learning. To be honest with you, there's definitely value in having it in the work session, but part of the value of engaging in this conversation is having an audience, because you engaging in this conversation while other community members are part of that conversation is more powerful than doing it in an empty room. So I guess I'd say that to say, if we were to take 5 to 7 minutes at a regular board meeting, I would actually say that would be more effective than doing it in a work session, even though traditionally speaking, work sessions are more collaborative and discussion oriented. I feel like as a symbol to our community, having this conversation at the regular work session would actually be more effective. Just some y'all's thoughts on that.
I would agree.
What are we agreeing to?
That we're
To
not
talk
going to
about
have
the
the
work.
discussion
At the work,
about.
at the regular session. Here's why. I think, so it energizes our community. This energizes you as well, but I think it energizes our community. And I think the type of audience we get at the regular sessions, it's more powerful.
Where there's just a lot more participation.
And honestly, I want to get back over to high school. to open
Let's
house.
practice what we preach and read a book in front of people. I mean, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great example too of our continued focus on shared leadership,
It's
learning.
pretty simple. Okay, we're gonna skip then. Let's go to, and we don't need guest comments, but I want to thank everyone for attending.
Well, there may be, I don't know.
I'm sorry. Mr. Brooks, you okay over there? Okay. With that being said, I need a motion to close this meeting.
Motion.
Okay, I got 2. Okay. Take your pick. Ms. Dye made the motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
It's always
Adjourned.
ladies first.
I love you.